Kids are the best, huh?
Alright, well, being monetized was fun while it lasted, but we're back on the road, baby. Carry on, my Dean likes pie. So what did we learn from last episode? The woods are not a good place for gamers. If you're the skeptic in an episode of the show, you're probably gonna die first. We also learned that if you space it apart by a decade, nobody will remember how you reused the set from arguably your best monster episode with one of your worst. And, you know, Sam and Dean's dad seems to be manipulating the boys by pretending he's in mortal danger in order to get them to clean up his messes. He bailed on the woman in white hunt, and he bailed on the Wendigo hunt, but most importantly, you bailed on me. I mean, Sam and Dean. David Nutter is no longer directing, but thankfully another X-Files alum fills his place in Kim Manners. This also marks the first episode not written by the series creator Eric Kripke, and instead written by Sarah Gamble, who would be passed the torch of showrunner after season 5, which, even though I have intensely mixed feelings about where the show went after Kripke's departure, it couldn't have been easy being handed a show that had essentially concluded with the most significant thing that could be done within its world, and told to follow that with something that will keep the show going for another couple of years. And for better or worse, they did that. At this point, they are seemingly nowhere closer to finding Dad or whatever killed Jess and their mother. Sam is still pouty about their lack of progress, but Dean assures him that until they find another clue to his whereabouts, they are going to do Monster of the Week episodes. This is pretty much the full extent of them harping on the season's arc, which I'm incredibly thankful for. Not to continuously shit on the later seasons, but it's just a marvel that they could condense the greater continuity down to a conversation at the beginning of the episode before they get to work. In later seasons, they teased the concept of a Monster of the Week episode and then split that time between 3 different season-long plot lines that I couldn't give a fuck about. The purity of it all, focusing on one goddamn thing. 2 characters doing one thing. Can you imagine? Following nothing but a newspaper article, the boys investigate a series of mysterious disappearances at a lake in Wisconsin. People enter the lake and seemingly never come back out. Posing as the U.S. Wildlife Service, yet still looking like 2 himbos fresh out of the hot idiot casting agency, they question the brother of the latest victim, who reaffirms there is no chance she drowned by accident. She just went under and never resurfaced. They ask to speak to the father, but are refused permission. He's got a lot of staring at the water to do. Maybe he thinks she's going for some kind of record. I got Guinness Book on speed dial, baby girl. Sheriff Devins reiterates the same information and assures that they've done all they could to recover a body, and that barring a Loch Ness monster, there's nothing that could have attacked her, causing Dean to give Sam a look that seems to say, holy shit, are we gonna have to hunt a Loch Ness monster right now? Sammy! Is this episode gonna be that good? No, I guess these missing persons won't be a problem for much longer though, as due to the local dam eroding, its spillway will be opened, all but completely draining the lake anyway. Good news, right? Right? Proving the CW's ceaseless nepotism, Fred from Angel enters the scene. I mean Andrea, the sheriff's daughter, and her son Lucas, who doesn't seem to be much of a talker. Dean gets curved real hard after his dynamite pickup line.
Kids are the best.
The 2 immediately internet stalk her and find out that Andrea's husband was one of the lake's victims, and her son was with him at the time and was so rattled by the event that he had become mute. I feel like you wouldn't just post that picture of a traumatized boy in the newspaper as though he were a 20-pound bass or some shit. Oh, he was a fighter, alright, I'm gonna glue him to a plaque and make him sing Take Me to the River. In what was almost a stroke of good writing, Dean really empathizes with Luke, as he is sort of shaped by the loss of a parent as well. Although it is one of those visual whoopsies, because as we saw it, Dean didn't really see his mother die. He was in the hallway. You remember? Dean, take your brother a run. But we'll say this makes sense. I'll let them have it. Something I'm likely to say less and less as the show chugs along. The boys continue to stalk Andrea, meeting her while she's at a park with her son. I like this scene in retrospect because if you know how the first era of the show ends, this scene where Dean plays with Lucas's army men is wonderfully prophetic. It's also just a side of him you don't see often. The truly sentimental Dean, even if it is in service to goading this child into helping them with the case. I mean, it pays off. He gets a drawing that comes into play later. You know, it's not my favorite episode, but I do like that scene, and I do like the death of Andrea's brother. It's got a clever shot. He gets sucked into this big sink, and there's a fun underwater shot showing him struggling. I'm almost positive they reused this in like a Halloween episode at some point. And there's a lot of intensity in the scene. I think it's pretty well done. I'm always proud of them when they take chances on something. The worst episodes are when you don't try anything, when they don't try to make something creepy. It's a horror show, right guys? You're out to spook me, right? There's sometimes I don't know. I do have to dock them points for continuity as like, look, the plug isn't even in the drain when it fills up, and then he rolls up his sleeves to unplug it, but now the plug's over on the counter, but then it's not. Like, where am I in time, bro? I'm freaking out. While trying to determine what would be causing this, Dean says something which has intrigued me for years.
Water wraith, maybe?
What the heck is that? They do this a lot early on, just guess as to what it is by saying a thing they will never actually depict in the show. Wraiths, sans water, show up later on, but they are instead depicted as a thing that uses a retractable wrist tentacle to suck people's brains, instead of what I was picturing, which was like a torrent of water in the shape of a dude or something. But that's cool too, I guess. The boys guess that whatever this thing is, it's moving through the water from the lake, which is why it seems to be killing one family that lives next to it. The father is still in no condition to talk, but they do notice his house looks familiar. So they figured they'd try asking Lucas again, who gives them a new drawing of a little boy with a red bike. They find a decent enough match to the house in the drawing and ask the owner about this boy, only to learn that his name was Peter and he's been dead for 35 years. Disappeared on his way home from school. With no family left, the victim's father rides out into the... Holy shit! An effects shot? A rare treat. In one of many wild, rear-projected car rides, the boys wonder if he had been responsible for the boy's death and maybe his spirit is out for revenge. The sheriff finds out the boys are phonies and tells them to leave town, which they, of course, do not do because they gotta go save Andrea from the dead boy who controls river water, I guess. At the moment this thing says, "Come play with me," I think is the crossover into hard schlock. A dead child saying that has been creepy only once in cinematic history, and it was not this day. You know, the death of a child is a grave matter. It's a serious thing that handled a certain way could be very powerful and intense. But if there's one way to immediately drain any impact of that, it is to make it say, "Come play with me."
What did it say?
It said, "Come play with me."
Oh, girl, they really made you say that, huh? I appreciate you committing to it, I guess. Looking through Andrea's photo albums, Dean determines that the boat guy and the sheriff were both in a sort of Boy Scouts group with Peter in the 1970s. Turns out, in a cruel act of "it's just a prank, bro," the sheriff and boat guy held Peter's head underwater until he drowned, then buried his bike and never spoke about it again. They try to explain the situation to Sheriff Child Murderer, but he's not buying the whole vengeful spirit idea, so you know what that means. What the fuck, Lucas? Lady, your kid's an idiot. God, what does that look like in the script? Lucas becomes an idiot, and then he walks into the murdered lake. Well, they rescue the kid, but the sheriff is dragged to the bottom, fulfilling Peter's revenge. So I guess there isn't much to do now. Can't win them all. An important lesson in hunting that you, as far as I remember, only learned this once. I guess we just take off now. Nice lav mic, Sam. Once again, he just stands awkwardly in the background while Dean gets the kiss. I think this episode is acceptable. It's more of a stumble when compared to the previous episodes. Very sure footing. I think the revelation of what they're hunting is sort of unsatisfying because it's just like a special ghost that very literally reflects its inspiration from The Grudge, and that they couldn't have actually done anything about. There was no body to salt and burn, and up until people start throwing themselves into the lake, all they could really do was convince them not to go in the water. But performances are really good in this episode. This season picks a lot of great character actors for the grieving widows and whatnot. I think it's also really well directed. The sun rising in the window's reflection after they save Andrea, Peter's mother's face reflected in his photo. There are several shots that gave me pause and made me, in the words of Filter, say, "Hey man, nice shot." Yeah, not the best episode, but it still makes me nostalgic for this era. It's still quaint and fun enough. If you like stuff like this, you should also watch X-Files instead.
Can I get you anything else?
Oh God, we're not gonna have to hug or anything, are we? That's right, a pie.